Welcome back. You cannot underestimate the importance of the races for U.S. Senate and Congress to Democrats and Republicans in Washington. It's only who controls Congress at stake. And joining us for more is Taryn Fenske of the Republican National Committee, who is now based in Florida for the duration of the campaign. And we welcome you to the trapezoid, as we like to tell it. Just explain to folks, whether we're talking about the Senate race here or all the congressional races here on the Suncoast or around the state, why Florida is so important to who controls both the Senate and the House in Washington.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me on. It's very interesting. We need to keep the majority in both the Senate and the House. For example, tax reform was passed. Floridians are thriving on that. And so it's very important to elect conservative leadership down the ballot, especially in our congressional and Senate races. For example, Governor Scott has created 1.6 million jobs since he took office, and there's a record low unemployment of 3.6%. And so we need to continue those things.
But right now, as we all know, especially watching the Kavanaugh hearings, the Senate is so tightly split, 51-49. So a pickup in Florida or a loss in another state really kind of has a big impact on the who controls the Senate. Latest poll that came out by St. Pete Polls has the governor up by 2 points, 49 to 47. This race has remained incredibly close for a very long time. We still don't see any indication of it breaking one way or the other.
All races in Florida have been pretty close, as you know. Governor Scott has done such a great job, and I think that he's shown his leadership in the past 8 years, and he's going to continue to push through. As I said, conservative leadership is important. Job creation is what we're hearing on the ground, and it all ties into what we're hearing on the ground. The Republican National Committee has over 90 staffers here, partnered and paired with the Republican Party of Florida, who have hit almost 5 million voter contacts. And what we're hearing is that they want strong conservative leadership that's focused on tax cuts and job creation.
A couple of questions really quickly. What impact do you think that the hurricane will have? Because a great area of the Panhandle was basically wiped out. People living around, and we reported it early in our show, the majority of whom are Republicans, have been displaced from their homes, and now you have to find other alternative ways in terms of voting and so forth. Are you concerned about that, especially since these races are very close?
What I'm concerned about is the relief and recovery right there. I was there last weekend passing out supplies, and it's just decimated and devastating to see families displaced. I believe the official cited, they came out, I saw earlier on your show that they came out with the, some ideas and tips for what they're going to do. But right now, I think our job is to make sure these people recover, and then we'll make sure to get out and explain, how people can vote.
Let me ask you this question. You said how many folks from the RNC are down here on the ground?
So paired with the Republican Party of Florida, we have 90 staffers on the ground.
So
yes.
Are they equally working on the U.S. Senate race and all the congressional races here on the Suncoast and elsewhere, or are they mostly on the ground working on the Senate race?
So we work with every down ballot candidate from local level to statewide to the Senate race. For example, we've hit 5 million doors in Florida, and nationwide earlier this week we hit 50 million doors. To put that in perspective, on Election Day in 2016, for President Trump, we hit 50 million doors on Election Day. And earlier this week we hit 50 million nationwide, and 5 million of those are in Florida. So
let me ask you this. Why do you think so many of these congressional races are more competitive than they've been in the years past? You have a tight race here in the 16th Congressional District, but across the Tampa Bay area, West Palm, Miami, these are Republican seats which the Democrats are really contesting and raising a whole lot of money for this year. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the money factor. Shapiro's race earlier this week was announced that $800,000 of Democratic funding was pulled out, which I think basically admits defeat. I believe that I think he outraised from Buchanan 50 to 1, and I think it just shows that conservative leadership is working. People want tax cuts, people want tax reform, people want a strong economy and to live the American dream in Florida. And so I think Republicans are ready to defy history in November.
All right, we have to leave it there. Taryn, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.